Welcome to Season 3 of You Belong Here, a podcast dedicated to helping you connect with the people, supports, and resources in Strathcona County. I'm your host, Brad, and I'm a counselor with the Supportive Outreach Services program at Family Community Services. Today, I'm excited to welcome my guests, Kira and Lawreen from Emergency Services, here to chat with us about emergency preparedness and what to do in the event of an emergency. Kira, do you want to start us off telling us a little bit about your role and your organization?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm one of the community safety education coordinators in the county. So my role really focuses on anything to do with public safety and education. So things from first aid, CPR training, fire extinguisher training, all the way to wildfire preparedness, overall emergency preparedness, and public engagement.
Fantastic. Thank you. And Lawreen, what do you do with emergency services?
I am a 911 dispatcher.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And thanks again for joining us today. We want to talk a little bit about what emergency preparedness looks like here in Strathcona County, what to expect when you're making a call to 911, and who some of the first points of contact are if an emergency does happen, among other topics. Can you start us off with that first topic, Lawreen, about if somebody does encounter an emergency or a crisis situation and need to get in contact with 911, what should they expect?
So within Strathcona County borders, a little bit moving into the west into East Edmonton, we're going to pick up those 911 calls. People are going to call 911. They'll be answered by us. And the first three questions that we're going to ask is, this is 911, fire, police, or ambulance. So they have those three options. People who have never called 911 before, they've come across a car accident and they will say, I don't know what I need. That's okay. I'll ask you, okay, tell me what's going on right now, and I'm going to help you with that. And then they say, I just came upon a car accident. This is where I am located. And then I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to transfer you through to ambulance. Based on the questioning that they tell me that they believe that there are injuries, we're going to get the fire department going and the police department. I just want you to stay on the line while I transfer your call through to ambulance. We are getting the fire department going. So we do lots of reassurance. In an emergency, people are pretty scared. Sometimes they don't hear us the first time. I transfer them through to AHS, but we're also staying on the line with that call. So I just mute my headset so that my breathing or anything isn't interfering. And then I'm listening to make sure that Alberta Health Services has the same address that I have, because I have probably better accuracy because I'm getting that immediate pin drop. So I can see that the person is at, say, Highway 16 and Range Road 220. I make sure that Alberta Health Services has that same information so that we're both going to the right emergency. And then I'm going to listen to further information because, again, our critical response units might also be going to this emergency too. And I want to make sure that they're getting good information, that our fire trucks are getting good information, and that I'm also communicating that same information to our CMP so that they can attend. And then once I have that information, I'm dropping the call.
That is comforting to know. So the callers don't need to know every detail about what's going to happen. You're going to kind of coach them through that, stay on the line with them, and give them the support.
Absolutely.
All the way through.
I'm going to ask them the questions, reassure them that we're getting them help. And then also there's a big component of safety. I don't want them to get out of their car and try to go to that person and put themselves in any further danger. So we're staying on the line so that we can ensure that they're safe, that we're getting good information that's accurate while providing reassurance to those people that have just gone through this possible, they've witnessed a trauma that has happened or a car accident.
Great. What do you think the listeners need to know about what's different if that's a mental health situation?
So people can absolutely call 911 and we can direct them to another resource that we have, a crisis line. But we also have another option that people in a mental health crisis, they can text a number 988 or they can call that number and they can be connected with a mental health specialist that will be able to help them. Again, if this is an emergency, we want them to call 911 so that we can get them immediate help. But if they just would like to speak to somebody about a mental health challenge, they can text or call 988.
That's an important differentiation. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm curious, shifting into the more big picture emergencies. In the past while, we've experienced things like large scale wildfires, evacuations. Does emergency services have a role when those occur?
Absolutely. I'll let Kira answer that.
Oh, sure. I think the initial 911 call is still going to go through Lawreen and her team because someone's going to spot something that is happening. And Initially, that'll go through 911, and resources will be tasked out to, if it's a wildfire, for example. And then once those on-scene crews are giving feedback to dispatch and learning that the fires may be getting a little bit bigger, there's windy conditions, there's dry grass, it's moving faster, it might impact a subdivision or a community. Now we start looking a little bit bigger picture and looking into the other resources that Emergency Services has, as well as the county as a whole through our emergency management program, and starting to activate those resources. So we have the ability to send out additional incident management team personnel to that incident to support coordination, to support response, support evacuations, as well as we have our Emergency Operations Center, which is actually located just in the basement of County Hall here. So it's very local. And we can have staff there that are supporting the greater coordination efforts to evacuate a community, provide supports for those evacuees. And that takes the burden off of those on-scene resources that are having to deal with the fire. So now we as a larger organization with more staff in the county can support the people focused, and we can really support our community so that we can be more coordinated that way.
Wow, that sounds like an amazing amount of coordination and effort that goes into that. I can scarcely imagine the amount of logistics that it takes to arrange something like an evacuation. If that is happening, if people hear on the news, there's an evacuation going on, what is the best way for them to access relevant information? What should they know? Where should they go? How can they get in touch with people? What does that look like?
Great question. So, Lawreen has a great point she wants to add.
So I think it would be really great for residents to know, going to the Strathcona County website, being able to go onto the Facebook website. For instance, last year we had a really big grass fire. I believe it was in April, and it was at Baseline and 17th Street, and it spread to Broadmoor, I believe. So it was on the east side of the road. The smoke was tremendous. People in Woodbridge Farms were calling 911 because they could see the smoke, and our 911 call volume was extraordinary. We couldn't keep up, but it was also blocking people that were calling in emergencies that they had that had nothing to do with the fire, medical and police calls and other fires that were going on. So we needed to get information out very quickly, and we didn't have the capacity to send an emergency alert. We contacted the chief on call, who then communicated with Strathcona Communications. They put something out immediately. Our union, Local 2461, put something out on their website saying, there's a large fire at Baseline and Broadmoor spreading to 17th Street. The smoke that you're seeing is contained. Firefighters are on scene. Police is on scene. Please avoid that area. Please refrain from calling 911 if you see this smoke, so that you don't tie up the 911 lines. And that is such a fantastic resource to have, because people do tend to go onto social media and see if there's anything that is being published about that.
So those emergency alerts appear on the main Strathcona County website. Is there anywhere else that those are accessed?
On Facebook.
Facebook. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, so I think it's a great distinction to have that we have all of these communication resources internally. And then in the event of a evacuation order that we need to put out, that will come through the Alberta Emergency Alert System that folks are aware of. And that emergency alert will say what the threat is. So like, there's a wildfire in this vicinity. Folks that live in this community, and it'll be outlined and defined, need to take these actions. And that will include getting your basic supplies, medications, pets, and then it will have an action or a place for them to go or a phone number to call. So quite often we will have a phone line set up for a registration center, and that'll be coordinated in partnership with Family and Community Services and our ESS staff, so that if folks need additional supports like food, clothing, lodging, they don't have any family in the area, they have pets, they have special medication prescriptions that they need, we would be looking to our partners in ESS and Family Community Services to help us support that person.
Yeah, and just to clarify, ESS refers to Emergency Social Services, which is activated in the event of a large-scale emergency and helps to coordinate the evacuation, the registration processes to make sure that everybody is tracked and safe and is able to get in touch with any relatives that are also impacted by the emergency, and can also connect them to shelters, financial supports, clothing, anything that they might need while they are displaced during the course of that emergency. You mentioned then, so the first step then is to go to a registration center, which is in the Agora. Is that right?
That's one of our primary locations that we have identified, but the location would be given in that Alberta emergency alert, so that, if the event is actually, or the incident is impacting the Agora and the community center, then we would have to identify a different site. So we do have some predetermined sites set out, and it just depends on the nature of the emergency, how many people are impacted, and does that registration center have what we need it to have in order to, have people come and park safely and register safely and provide those services. So, yeah. Lawreen?
I would like to add, though, that if people are being evacuated, so they will be getting that emergency alert, we can actually go in and we can make the map of just who the identified communities are that we want to evacuate. But there would also be peace officers, police officers, fire department, all personnel would be going and knocking on people's doors and telling them verbally, just in case they don't have a cell phone. I mean, we have to also understand there's still a large part of the community that doesn't have access to social media, a computer, or a cell phone at home. So there's going to be a door knock, and they're going to be told there's a fire, there's an emergency in this area, we need you to evacuate. This is where you're going to go. This is how much time you have. It might be 30 minutes, it might be an hour. And then they're going to follow up and go back and do that door knock again and make sure that that family has been evacuated.
Wow. It sounds like it's really something that has been so thoroughly planned and is capable of scaling up depending on the needs of the situation. Mm-hmm. What are some of the key questions that people have in a situation like this that you can kind of answer right now about, you should know this or consider this?
I think folks always wonder what they should bring with them and how they can prepare in advance for a possible evacuation. So preparedness looks a little bit different for everyone, and we offer a lot of resources both on our website as well as an emergency preparedness presentation in the community quite often or upon request if folks want to learn more about it. But some common items that folks should be thinking about to prepare for an evacuation, whether that's from, in the case of a wildfire or even just a house fire, is having copies of your key documents, right? So copies of your insurance and how to contact that insurance company in the event that you need to. If you have pets, thinking about your pets, like, do they have the food that they need? Do you have their bedding? Do you have their vaccine records? Because if you're getting evacuated to a different site and you're bringing a pet with you, that's something that you're going to want to have as proof of health. Any other special medications that folks are on, honestly, copies of your prescriptions. I know my health records and there's lots of resources that way nowadays, but sometimes just taking a picture of your prescription bottle can make it a lot easier to refill that if you need to. But just some basic supplies, right? Like phone chargers. Some folks that really want to prepare a full emergency kit will look at having food and water for a few days to be self-sufficient. And I always joke that, put the snacks in there that are actually the food that you want to eat, not the cans of Spam that nobody actually wants to eat because you're already stressed. So put a few chocolate bars in there. And some of those pieces. So those are some ways that folks can prepare in advance. And the last one would be phone numbers of friends, family, other resources. Because if your phone dies and suddenly you forget someone's phone and you're trying to let them know that you're safe, you've been evacuated, but you're safe. Sometimes just having those phone numbers written down in the event of an emergency can just reduce stress on you overall.
Those are some really great considerations. I don't think I would have thought of, vaccine records for pets. And also, you're certainly right that we are well past the days where people have every phone number memorized of the people in their lives, right? It's just living in your phone. And if that goes dead or it gets lost, you can really be left a little bit helpless. So writing those numbers down, having a physical copy of them all together with the vaccine records, a little bit of food, all those kind of put aside and ready to go if you did have an emergency is a really important consideration.
Yeah.
I wonder as well about, that's kind of emergency preparedness. What can you say about emergency prevention? We've talked a little bit about wildfires, some other emergencies that are encountered in our county. What should people know about, how those start, what their role in prevention is? What can you tell us there?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've been talking a lot about wildfire preparedness, so I'll maybe touch on that ahead of our wildfire season. And some great resources that we have in the county is a program called Fire Smart. And Fire Smart is a national program that aims to reduce someone's risk from a wildfire impacting their home or property. So it can be applied on a community level, to a business, or even to just an individual property. And it really just focuses on some simple actions that reduce the risk of a fire impacting someone's house. So, for example, some basic steps include cleaning your gutters out regularly, so from needles and debris. Mowing your lawn is actually a huge one. So mowing and maintaining your lawn and removing all combustibles from the immediate vicinity of your house. So that space that's 0 meters from your house to 10 meters, just take away everything that is possibly combustible. So that includes firewood piles. Right? We don't want to store firewood piles against the outside of our house. Let's move them further away so that we're reducing that risk of fire, because we can't eliminate fire risk at all, because the wildfires are natural in Alberta and they happen every year. But if we can reduce their intensity as they approach communities, then we can save and protect homes overall. So a couple of years ago, during one of our outdoor fires, I just remember seeing this picture afterwards, and it was really impactful to me because it demonstrated how small steps could make a difference. That the fire had been fast moving through grass, so there's not a lot of fuel in grass, so it just kind of burns hot and fast, and it's driven by wind. And the fire burned around the property, but it stopped right where the grass had been mowed. And it wasn't even green grass yet. It was still dry spring grass. But where the grass had been mowed, the fire stopped. And that eliminated that fire transferring closer to the house and transferring that fire to the house. So ultimately saved the property. And that was all because of individual property protection, which is amazing.
Thanks for that, Kira. That actually really changes the way I think of fires sometimes. I often think of just completely preventing them, the idea of never having that. But you point out that fires are a natural part of the environment that we live in, but the choices that we make on our property, where we arrange things, can help to reduce the impact that they have and to protect ourselves, our property, and our families in the event that they do happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Some other ways that I would recommend, not recommend, but some other ways that we can reduce fire on our landscape and reduce the risk of these outdoor fires is by following safe burning practices. So folks that live in rural properties that want to conduct burning over the winter to, reduce fuel loads or that sort of thing. We do have a county fire permit system that is available online that folks can access year-round. And the fire permit, once issued to that landowner, is valid for a year. So you have a lot of time to figure out when you want to conduct that burning. So it's really, really easy to access. And the intention of that permit is really to have a fire inspector and fire investigator chat with the landowner and give them some tips about how to burn safely. So making sure that we're always monitoring those burning operations, so burn barrels, where we have a source of water on standby to extinguish that fire completely. And we're checking the burn line. So the burn line is a phone number that you can call or text anytime, and it will tell you if it is safe to conduct those burning conditions at that time. Okay, and that's monitored every day through Lawreen and her team, and she can probably touch on it a little bit more about what goes into that. But that burn line will ensure that, folks aren't accidentally starting a fire when maybe the winds are too high. And then embers could be sent into dry grass, and then fires might start that way. Because in fact, about 20% of our fires this past year in 2025 were the result of outdoor burning that maybe got away from folks. So the winds were too high, or after someone is done burning, they might not fully extinguish it. So we remember the old adage of soak it, stir it, soak it again. Do that. It works really well. What we have sometimes found is, folks conduct burning over winter when it's cold, and, the fire burns down and smolders down. And then we think that, well, it's minus 10. It's fine. It'll go out. And when in fact, the fire will actually kind of burn in the ground over winter. And then once spring comes and the snow melts, now that fire can be reignited and it has a source of dry grass nearby. So even in winter, we want to soak it, stir it, soak it again to make sure it's fully extinguished.
Soak, stir, soak again.
Yeah.
That's good to know. That's a good mantra. I also didn't realize that permits were more than just, paperwork or an online application. Yeah. There's that educational piece where somebody comes out, kind of looks at your property with you and really helps you understand how to burn in a safe and responsible way.
Yeah, so I'll just specify that you would have a fire inspector come on scene to inspect your burn pile if it was an oversized pile. So if it's over the standard dimensions, then they would have a fire inspector come out personally. Otherwise, the normal practice is to talk on the phone and make sure that the burning practices are understood and the burning conditions are understood. Yeah, maybe Lawreen can touch on some of the burn line stuff.
Yeah.
Yes, so we have a cell phone. People can text that. They'll get a message. We update that on the hour until midnight and then again at 6 a.m. So every hour we're monitoring what the wind speed is, what the wind conditions are, and then we update that whether or not people can burn or not burn. That number that they can call or text is on their burn permit. It's also on the Strathcona County website. It's on any of the fire halls. We have like a little piece of paper on the front, a little sign about how to access a burn permit. The phone number is also on there. So they have many different methods to access that. And then it's just simple. If I wanted to burn my burn pile, I would call that number. It would tell me if burning's allowed or not allowed, and then I would base my burning on that.
That sounds incredibly helpful. Thank you for sharing that with us. I'm curious about just any other tidbits of information, knowledge about, emergency situations, preparedness, prevention. What would you like to share with the listeners right now as we begin to approach the end of this conversation?
The Alberta Fire Band's website is also another resource that folks can access. And that wouldn't just apply to here in the county, but, folks are recreating outside of Strathcona County and they want to check if they're allowed to have a campfire this weekend. That's a great resource as well and it's a quick check and it's an app on your phone as well.
Oh, wow. That's especially convenient.
I would just like to say, I think that there's a misconception about cell phones. A lot of parents give cell phones to their children that they think are not active anymore because they don't have a SIM card in it. As long as a cell phone has a charged battery, your child can call 911 by pushing the side buttons, by just an emergency SOS. And we get so many 911 calls that are just taking over our phone lines because there's a baby in their car seat playing with a cell phone. And I understand why parents are doing it, but it is coming into 911.
That is helpful to know. I was not aware that you could do that without a SIM card.
Yeah, kind of the last thing I'd like to highlight, if folks are interested in learning about how they can personally impact their property and reduce their personal fire risk, we can come out and conduct a free home assessment to highlight different areas that they could start to take action today that are very low cost to no cost at all.
How could our listeners arrange for that to happen?
So they can access our website, which is strathcona.ca/emergency services, to see the whole variety of programs that we offer. You can also directly contact our community safety education team at safety.educators@strathcona.ca.
that sometimes we are faced with these situations, and that even in the aftermath of those, there are a lot of supports as well. If people are financially impacted, their mental health or physical health is suffering, social connections have been impaired, Family and Community Services also has a lot of supports there. You can walk in, you can call our main line at 780-464-4044 to get more information about those services, such as solutions navigation and counseling. And those are always available to you. This has been such a helpful conversation, but it does not need to end here. Our listeners can always visit us at strathcona.ca /YouBelongHere to find links and resources to things such as emergency services, solutions navigation, counseling, and other services that can support you in preventing, responding to, and coping with the aftermaths of an emergency, as well as to sign up for our monthly newsletter to get alerts about new podcast episodes, local resources, workshops, and events straight to your inbox. Thanks both again for joining us. It's been a great conversation today.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for having us.